So I've got the block cleaned up. I'm ready to start putting I'm gonna put the crankshaft in. We're gonna check the clearance on the bearings. Since we've had the crankshaft turned, it's a good idea to check the clearance. So I'm gonna put the main bearings in dry first, and then we'll set the crank in. We won't want to turn it or anything. We'll just set it in nice and easy. And we'll put the main caps on, the top bearings, everything in, and torque it over plastic gauge is what we use for measuring that. But anyway, just gonna start by put a thrust bearing in the back first. This is the back, and these should be an undersize by 10 thousandths, I believe. I sure hope so, because that actually is not a 0.025, it's a 0.25, which if that's metric, that would be about right. So, well, let's throw it on the floor a couple times. That's always good for your bearings. Break them in right. So we'll set the crank in and we'll check it. It seems like it might actually work. I don't know. So I don't know what I'm measuring there, but when I set it on the crankshaft itself, it seems to fit. So we're gonna plastic gauge them. We're gonna make sure the clearances are right on them before we try to run it. So I'm hoping at least I can get the crankshaft in it. I might go ahead and put the lifters and the cam in it. So what we got here is a plastic gauge. This goes from, well, this side says we go from 1 to 3 thousandths clearance. I might need to get a different kind. I don't know if this one's the right. I need to look at the specs, but that's all they had at the parts store the other day. But what that is just a little piece of plastic, and you lay a piece on top of your crankshaft under each bearing cap, and when you torque it, pull these back off, you'll get a measurement on your clearance on your and let me look at the clearance right quick. So we should be between 0.0275 and 0.5, and this, like I say, this stuff might not work. We will see. It doesn't take a super big piece to make it work. You just got to get it under the bearing. So but now we can put our caps on, and we'll start off with just setting the number 5 in place. Get some oil on them bolts. Make sure everything is clean and you get the cap on the right direction. number 3, number 4, number 2, number 5, and number 1. So 3, 4, 2, 5, 1. Number 3 is in the middle. And I say we're going to do 29 first. Number 3. I think number 2. Oh, that's a little looser. She didn't go all the way down in there. There we go. Number 1 and then number 5. We don't want to spin the crank while we got the gauge material in there. And now we're going to 58, I think. Going past 58. There's 58. I might have did this one the wrong way. Now we go to 109. I'm going to go ahead and go to the max on it. Okay, so now we can back them all off. And we'll check our clearance. Start it back. This engine stands just a little bit tall. All right. So you can actually measure either the bearing or the crankshaft side. And the stuff comes with its own little gauge. So let's see what we got here. Our smashed thickness. That's in millimeters. I need to go inches. So we got right at 0.03, which is just a smidge above. On this one, yeah, we're right at 3 thousandths. So I think my crankshaft guys did a pretty good job. I'd say we're close to 2 on that one. That's a little bit tight. What number is that? Number 3. I think it's good. Right there, about 3 thousandths. So the wider that smashes, the tighter your clearance. That's right at 3 thousandths there. And I'd say that one's about the same. So that means our clearances are good. If it would have smashed out too wide, like number 3 is a little tight. The spec calls for 0.20 or 0.00275 is the low end and 0.5 is the high end, so we're right around 3. Like I say, journal number, the middle journal here is just a bit on the tight side there, and you can just kind of scrape that plastic stuff off. But I'm gonna pull this crank back out, and then I'm gonna lube these bearings with the white lithium grease. That's what I use. I mean, you could probably use something different, but that's what I've always used when I did a diesel engine. When we do this the second time, when I tighten the first setting, I'm going to take a bar and I'm going to shift this back and forth to make sure the bearing caps are seating in right. Pretty hefty little crankshaft there. Person probably wouldn't have to do this, but it's kind of nice to have the peace of mind that you've checked it and you know where it's at. I'd sure hate to put one together that was too tight and spin a bearing. And if it is too tight, then about the only option you got is take it back to your machine shop and have them polish that one journal down a little bit more. But most good machine shops, they get it right, but it doesn't hurt to check them. I just don't think it's a good idea to trust everything. I'm not sure it's true, but I've always been told that if you put too much of this in here, you can plug the oil passages. I don't know that it's true, but wouldn't be good if you did, I guess. But on that thrust bearing, it's got a wear surface on the front and back side of it, so you got to get it coated too. And you could just coat the crankshaft with this. I think it's easier to do it on our bearing caps. Anyway, just to get a film of grease. And this is Lubriplate, just a 105. Assembly lube is what it's called. It's made for just doing this stuff, and just the way I was taught to put them together, we use this. They make other kinds. and everybody's got a preference. So I rebuilt an engine one time when I was working at John Deere when I was just 18, just out of school. It was a 2750, I think, or something. It was one of the smaller utility tractors, but it needed a rebuild, so my boss put me on it. I rebuilt the motor on it. Thought I did a great job. Probably did okay. But when I put it back together, I got the clutch plate and the flywheel backwards. So got it all back together, fired her up, and she was just sounded pretty good. And then I noticed it was getting kind of warm, and pulled the dipstick, and there was metal flakes all over in the oil. But by putting that thing together with the flywheel plate backwards, it put too much pressure on this thrust bearing and it just ate it up. So we had to pull that motor back down. And probably if I hadn't been a young kid, I'd have probably got fired over that. But they handled it well. They treated me well. They kind of look at it like, you know, well, you learned your lesson for sure. And I did. So every time I put one together now, I double check everything on the flywheel for sure. Anyway, just you live and learn. Sometimes you don't learn fast. It takes a couple tries, but mistakes get made. I'm hoping I don't make too many on this setup here, but we'll see. So now we're ready to set the crank back in place. A little speck of dirt in that grease there. Throw dirt in it when we start it, or before we start it. So now I think we're ready to set the crankshaft back in. She didn't go. There she goes. I didn't have her set down in there all the way. So now we're ready to set my caps back in place, and this time we're going to torque them. That's going to be the last time we touch these, I hope, for another 30 years, maybe 35, whatever this thing is. '29's our first setting, right? Now, in order to line this back cap up, I'm gonna I'll actually loosen it off just a little bit. I just want it snug. I don't even want it tight. What I'm gonna do is take a pry bar and pry our crankshaft. Let's use a different spot here. And what that'll do is kind of help seat this main cap, the thrust surfaces. I'll just push that way on it and then we'll tighten it down. And I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I've always done it. I want to take a hammer and just give them a good whack. I'm going to double check those. And we're going to go on up to 109. Okay, so that should be it. Crankshaft moves nice and easy. What we want to see right there.